Our top story this hour, and in many parts of the world, particularly North America, United States President Donald Trump and Democratic rival Joe Biden will go head-to-head in the first presidential debate in Cleveland, Ohio tonight. In what has been billed the most important U.S. election in a generation, the number of people tuning in is expected to exceed 83 million Americans who watched Trump take on Hillary Clinton in their first debate 4 years ago. As Correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease reports, the stakes are so high that both are eager to emerge with a win after the first of 3 duels in this presidential matchup.
After months of campaigning and firing volleys at each other from afar, the two nominees will stand and speak directly to each other and the American people in the socially distanced event in Cleveland. And from the onset, it's clear what either will be focused on.
Well, I began to prepare by going over what the president has said, the multiple lies he's told. What I'd love to have is a crawler at the bottom of the screen, a fact checker, when we speak. If we really wanted to do something, I think that would make a great, great debate if everything both of us said was instantly fact-checked by an agreed-to group of people out there. And I'm looking forward to the debate.
The 74-year-old incumbent who has lagged national and battleground polling will work to throw his opponent off message, eager to portray Biden, who will be 78 in November, as too old for the presidency. While this baseless accusation could make it onto the debate stage.
I mean, if you look at some of those debates, I said there's no way he can continue. He can't continue. Then all of a sudden he debated crazy Bernie Sanders, and you know what? The truth is he was okay. And I said, how did he go from there with those horrible performances to where he was okay? And I always joke, but it is true. He was no Winston Churchill in debating, but he was fine. And people say he was on performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have written that.
The political theatre aside, the value of debates has itself become a point of contention.
The importance of the debates really depends on who you ask. So some would say that they've diminished in importance if you look at Hillary Clinton winning 3 of her presidential debates but losing the presidency, or Joe Biden not faring well in the debates during the primary, but winning the nomination. But I think it would be a hasty generalization to say that they don't matter. They matter greatly because it's one of these few moments during a course of a very long campaign when everyone can watch these 2 candidates on stage together and measure one against the other.
Biden is likely to hone in on the ineptitude of the response to the pandemic that has killed over 200,000 people, devastated families and the economy, while labeling the president a tax cheat after bombshell revelations in the New York Times this past weekend. Trump will tout the booming economy before COVID-19 struck, while framing his handling of the pandemic as a spectacular success.
He's a little more free flow than traditional candidates. He's certainly looser with the facts than traditional candidates. He is, what some would say straightforward, as others would say bullying more than traditional candidates. And I don't think that's changed at all from 2016. Maybe he's actually dug his heels in a little more on all of those traits. And that's a real challenge for anyone, including Vice President Biden starting Tuesday night. It's a lot. You're never going to out-mean Donald Trump. And the counter is, can you be calm and cool and collected? And it's not easy. I mean, quite frankly, it's a lot easier to portray chaos than it is calm.
I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
Additional topics to be covered include both the nominees' records, the Supreme Court, race relations in America, and the integrity of the election. The 90-minute debate begins at 3 a.m. Wednesday, Central African Time. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Well, Sherwin Bryce-Pease is standing by in New York, and he joins us via Skype to share a dip into this debate momentum. Sherwin, thanks very much indeed for joining us. 83 million people are billed to be watching this in America. I mean, this is the stuff of live television, isn't it? Sherwin, can you hear me? All right, he does that freezing thing really good. All right, we're going to try and dial him up again, and hopefully we'll connect with him. But as we say, this debate is going to be taking place at 3 a.m. South African time, Central Africa time. Joe Biden, former Vice President of the United States, coming up against the current president, Donald Trump. And this is the first of three. And in between, there'll also be debates with the vice presidents, Mike Pence, and the vice president candidate, Kamala Harris. A lot of people also looking forward to that. So this is the first of three. Most analysts suggest that, look, this isn't going to change a whole lot of things. But it certainly is useful in getting some insights into how they might perform under pressure. Sherwin Bryce-Pease is on the line now. Sherwin, a big made-for-television event.
Absolutely, and you correctly point out 83 million people, Peter, tuning in to see Hillary Clinton take on Donald Trump back in 2016, and the stakes even higher this time around, given what this country and many countries around the world are grappling with in terms of the coronavirus pandemic. This is a country that has an unemployment rate at 8.4%. Some 14 million Americans are out of work. People's families have been disrupted by COVID-19, including having to bury over 200,000 loved ones. So Americans are really eager, I think, in this head-to-head matchup to hear, to be able to decipher, to be able to see the divides that separate these two candidates so that they can actually make an informed choice come November. But having said that, we have early voting underway in a number of states. A lot of your support by now, given just how long the campaigns are in the United States, tends to be baked in already. So you also correctly point out that there's not much hope, certainly from both campaigns, that this is really going to sway a large portion of the electorate. Donald Trump's support has been consistent since before he was elected, but Biden has also been consistently in the lead by between 7 and 10 points. There's a new ABC poll that came out just this week, and a Washington Post ABC poll that puts him 10 points ahead nationally and leading in some of these key swing states. So my argument here is that the work is there for Donald Trump to do. He really has to come out and show why he deserves another 4 points. Another 4 years. And the polling numbers certainly indicate that he has a larger mountain to climb in this head-to-head matchup later tonight.
All right, so polling numbers nationally will tell you, yes, you're going to get more votes than the other guy, but Hillary did that. I guess the key really is to get more than the other guy in certain areas.
Hillary was ahead by between 3 and 4 points nationally, and that was borne out by her almost 3 million vote margin of victory nationally. Of course, that didn't matter because it was the Electoral College that you are required to win in terms of winning an election. Joe Biden has a bigger lead and is able to turn some consistently Republican states like Arizona, a swing state like Iowa and Ohio that went for the president last time, Florida, which is the big Republican must get in terms of the number of delegates required for the Republican path to the White House. So the odds are stacked in Biden's favor if he doesn't have a big slip or mess up tonight, or a gaffe that he's become prone to over his sort of 44 decades in public life. But he's a very likable person. He's a very sincere. He expresses empathy. So one is really going to see two visions for this country really placed front and center for voters to decide.
All right, so for Donald Trump, big issues that he's going to have to try and find answers for: coronavirus, the economy, and of course, personal conduct in various arenas, from not always being truthful, and also just this tax thing has just come at the wrong time for him.
Personal conduct that really hasn't hurt him with his base. It might have hurt him with some independents who voted for the president. You know, he was the new kid on the block, as it were, the businessman, billionaire that everyone thought was a very successful businessman. And so they didn't want to go with the kind of dynastic image that the Clintons had, that, you know, a husband being president, she being first lady, then a senator, and now president again. They wanted something fresh, something similar that happened to Barack Obama in 2008, the new kid on the block, as it were. And so some of the issues that the moderator has put on the agenda are, as you mentioned, the Supreme Court nominee. That's going to be a big fight in the Senate before the election. That could tilt the court 6-3 in favor of conservatives. The question of race relations, criminal justice reform, systemic racism. Remember, just a few months ago, the big discussion we were having in these two ways was about George Floyd and police brutality and systemic racism in the police force, the economy. Remember that famous line from Bill Clinton's advisor before he won his first term in 1992. It's about the economy, stupid. It's always about the economy. But an economy, Peter, today that has been framed in large part by the coronavirus and the ineptitude of the response to this by this administration in the United States, the richest country in the world, where we still have debates within the coronavirus task force among the doctors that advise the president about whether a mask is an effective way of reducing transmission. And so these are some of the things you're going to hear Joe Biden focus on, in addition to this bombshell report out of the New York Times that shows that the president, based on their reporting, paid only $750 in 2017 and 2018, his first 2 years in the White House, in taxes. So on the one hand, you have someone that's saying he's worth $11 billion, only paying $750 in tax. How's that going to resonate with the 14 million people that are unemployed? How's that going to resonate with firefighters and teachers and public officials that pay between $7,000 and $15,000 a year? So these are some of the things that Joe Biden is going to want to focus on, in addition to the fact that this is a president that has over $400 million due to some entity within the next 4 years. Who does this president owe money to? And are there national security implications as a result of that? Expect that to be the issue. Then, of course, the personal attacks from President Trump on probably Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. Remember, that came up a lot during the impeachment hearings vis-a-vis Ukraine. So it's going to be very interesting to hear how the president calibrates those sort of personal attacks, and whether that's going to have an impact on those undecided independent voters that are almost all too familiar with the kinds of attacks that come from this president, given just how much he appears on television on a weekly basis.
I suppose he'll try to distract. I mean, we remember how he performed with Hillary Clinton, and he almost bullied her, and he's almost outrageous in his behavior to a point that people forget actually to focus on the real issues. But he might find it difficult, harder perhaps, with someone like Joe Biden, who's been at this game an awfully long time.
Yeah, I expect Joe Biden to smile a lot when that happens, I think, and how he deflects or whether he chooses to get into a brawl. Look, at some point, Joe Biden will have to defend himself and defend his family, because I think people will want to see that, you know, and of course, those moments are the ones that get the most play the next day on social media. It's so quickly translated onto social media, and these things, of course, are known to go viral. So how he decides to respond to this, or if he's going to take the attack and reposition it to say, these are not important issues. What my son is doing or what my son did in his business is not important to the American people right now. We need to figure out how we are going to have a national strategy in terms of testing. We have to have a national strategy in terms of how we are going to distribute a safe and effective vaccine and put 14 million people back to work. These are the coffee table issues that Joe Biden is very good at explaining, because he comes from a white-collar community, a blue-collar community known as Scranton, Pennsylvania. He understands these bread-and-butter issues, in addition to the empathetic side of Joe Biden, just given the tragedy that the United States community has faced in the last few months in terms of the number of deaths, in terms of the disruption in people's lives. So this is someone that can empathize, as opposed to someone who struggles to empathize in terms of connecting with people in this country.
And then this big issue of he's trying to raise flags about the integrity of the election process, and he just won't answer this question of will you go peacefully if you lose?
Well, whether he answers it or not, the Constitution is clear that the presidential term ends on January 20th when the new president is sworn in. So whether you go peacefully or not, you go, right? Because that's the law. So you'll be frog marched out of the White House. So this is certainly something I've heard that might happen were he to stay. But you also heard repudiation come very quickly from people like Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in the Senate, to say there will be a peaceful transfer of power. You also heard someone like Lindsey Graham, who is a big advocate of this president, one of his top surrogates, saying that there will be a peaceful transfer of power. But it was strange to be having this conversation in the United States of America, that shining city on the hill, or certainly how it's been preached to us over the years, to be having a conversation about whether an incumbent would leave office peacefully. So that aside, he will have to go. What he does in order to stay, the claims about a possible electoral fraud, Peter, that is not based in fact. We have looked at the studies. We have talked to the electoral commissions. Remember, each state in this country has a different system, so it's difficult for there to be uniform fraud around this country, particularly in terms of Russians perhaps printing ballots, or the Chinese printing ballots, or these are some of the words we've heard out of officials at the White House. It's very difficult to duplicate 50 different ballots because you have 50 different systems in 50 different states. So the fraud issue should be debunked by Joe Biden because it's just not born out of fact.
All right, so we've run out of time, but very briefly, how much preparation do the candidates go through to get ready for these debates? It's 90 minutes long, but, if the movies are to be believed, there's quite a lot of prep and rehearsal.
Joe Biden, for example, has been spending a lot of time in Delaware with a number of aides. They go through mock debates. They go through the issues. They pretend to be Donald Trump, throw daggers his way, and sort of train him on how to respond. We understand the president has not spent that amount of time in formal debates. He'll, for example, be flying from the White House to a campaign event or back, where some aides will gather some of his the people that are working with him in preparation for these debates. Will come in and sort of quick fire questions at him. It's a different style. He feels he's the president, he's the incumbent, he's been dealing with these issues every day. He doesn't really require too much practice against Sleepy Joe.
All right. Well, it's now literally 3 hours and 40 minutes to go. I'm sure that everybody's getting their popcorn ready and drinks and sitting in front of their big screens. This is going to be quite a thing. We'll catch up with you tomorrow to sort of analyze what happened.
I will be on Morning Live tomorrow, so right after the debate we'll be live.
Fantastic.
At about 6:30 a.m.
We look forward to that. Thanks so much indeed, and great chatting to you as always, Sherwin.
Thanks, Peter.
Take care.